Hi, Viper chemistry students. Hey, let's take a look at naming binary compounds. Where does the binary word, what does that refer to? It means that there are two elements. Okay, so if we take a look at something like sodium chloride, which this is table salt. This is what we sprinkle on our food, season our food with salt, table salt. But notice that there is a sodium as the cation and chlorine as the anion. So the best thing to do when you name these is go ahead and identify the charges. And so this is going to be Na plus 1 and Cl minus 1. Now, do you have to write 1, like say 1 plus or 1 minus? Not when you just have 1. Okay, so like you will often see in chemistry textbooks, it just the plus sign only when it's a plus 1. Now, not true if it's more than 1. If it's 2, you'd see 2 plus, and so on. Now, what we would do here, this is the cation, this is the anion. So what we want to do is write the cation first, the name. And so this would be sodium. And it's over here as an alkali metal, the alkali metals. And chlorine is a halogen. And so, that's the only charges they're going to have. Plus, sodium is a plus 1 because it's going to give up its 1 electron in the s orbital. All right, so then back to this would be sodium chloride. Now you're going to start seeing, and notice that the anion here ends in IDE. So that's kind of the rule for that. But when you work your way into other binary compounds, especially the ones that are not alkali metals or alkali earth metals and not halogens here or group 16, you're going to start seeing metals that are of the transition metals, and then those tend to have more than one charge. So let's look at a couple of examples of that. So I've got here cadmium, Cd, and sulfur, S. So how would we identify what the cation and the anion charges are? So we don't really know for sure on cadmium, really, but we can tell from sulfur, because sulfur is a 2 minus because it is a group 16 element, and it's going to want 2 electrons to be like a noble gas configuration. So we do know that is always going to be 2 minus, which means then that cadmium, since they're directly proportional to each other, then it's going to be a 2 plus. So notice I wrote 2 plus and 2 minus, and how I would name that would be then cadmium. Now, I'm going to use a Roman numeral here because cadmium very, very likely has more than one charge because it's a transition. It's right here. It's a transition metal. So it's always just a good practice to go ahead and with transition metals write a Roman numeral. So this Roman numeral just means it's a 2 plus. So a Roman numeral 2, sulfide. Okay, so that's how that one's done. Now let's move on to iron and chlorine here. So we have again identifying the charges on these. Best thing to do is start with the anion because chlorine, being a halogen here, is always going to be -1. So we know that's a -1. But if there's 3 of them here, then that would be a total of 3 negative 1 charges. And so that makes this iron 3 plus because there's 3 of the chlorines, 3 minus, 3 plus would add up to 0. So how we would name this then is iron, Roman numeral 3, chloride, ending in IDE. Okay. Now, if you want to double check some of these charges of the transition metals, you could go to iron, click on it, go to the little link when the box pops up, and look for what says oxidation states. Oxidation states are the charges, and you will see that iron has more than one oxidation state. Okay, guys, I think that's it for naming.